All right, now we remain very excited to, our former professor is laughing at us, to bring up Chris Bachelder and Jennifer Habel to read together.
How's this? It's okay? How's that? Does yours work?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Good. Great to see you all. Thank you for being here. I'm just extraordinarily grateful to all the people who organize and run this conference, the Trinity, of course, also, and the staff. I just count myself really lucky to be here. Pleasure to read with Brittany tonight. Real pleasure and honor to teach with Kirsten this summer. And I want to thank our workshop students who are just as generous and incisive and supportive and engaged as they are talented. So thank you all. It's really been a delight. This is Jennifer Habel. We're married, and during the pandemic, we were really married, so married together. And so one of the things we just ended up doing is sitting at the dining room table and working on a book together about Herman Melville, quite by surprise, really. And then we kept going for two and a half years, and book's coming out in September, and thank you. We're told it'll be here later this week too at the bookstore, so I hope it does. Hope it makes it. So the book is called Day's Work. It's about a woman who is become obsessed with the life of Herman Melville, and she's sort of spending her pandemic obsessively researching and widely researching his life. We're going to read from some from that book tonight, and then some. We imagine a companion book, and we're going to read the prologue from that. That is based on obviously Day's Work is based on Melville. The second book, which we think is called Wakefield, would be based loosely on Hawthorne. Melville and Hawthorne, as you may know, had an intense, short but intense relationship in Western Massachusetts, 1851, 1852. And the woman is the wife, the narrator of Day's Work is, her husband's hanging around and some kids are hanging around. She narrates that book, and the husband narrates the second book. And we're going to read a little bit from both tonight. Anything I forgot?
No, just the first book is set in the pandemic. Second book is post-pandemic.
Oh, right. And that was all supposed to sort of evoke a former era, the pandemic stuff, but here we are. So the quarantine was supposed to be some distant. We were all supposed to think how weird that time was, and here we are. So it's not so distant. In the beginning, Jen's reading most of the first-person narrator stuff, and I'll read quotes. There's a lot of quoted material, so everything I read is either the husband or quotes from scholars and writers.
Okay. This morning, I'm unable to access HawMelDB, a searchable database created by a college student at Bard Simon's Rock in 1999. She created this database after extensive research into the relationship between Hawthorne and Melville, her chosen topic for a class assignment. The student's Hawthorne and Melville inquiry log, however, is available online and provides the outcomes of some of her database searches. Was Melville's love for Hawthorne unrequited?
3 sources, yes. 6 sources, no.
Was the relationship between Hawthorne and Melville non-Platonic?
7 sources, yes. 5 sources, no.
Was Melville part of the reason Hawthorne moved from the Berkshires?
6 sources, yes. 3 sources, no.
Was there an estrangement between Hawthorne and Melville at the end of their relationship?
2 sources, yes. 5 sources, no.
One of the sources the student found most useful was her ILL copy of Harrison Hayford's 1945 dissertation, Melville and Hawthorne, A Biographical and Critical Study. She was so engrossed by Hayford's study that she read it in a day, finishing it in her car outside of Price Chopper. The dissertation was particularly helpful because it listed all known meetings between Hawthorne and Melville from 1850 to 1851, either 8 or 9, depending on how one delineates a meeting. If you spend the night at someone's house, and the next day that person comes back with you to your house and spends the night, is that one meeting or 2?
That's one.
Although he couldn't prove it, Hayford speculated that Melville and Hawthorne met an additional time in November 1851, when Melville would have presented Hawthorne with a copy of Moby Dick, dedicated to him in admiration of his genius.
This episode, Hayford added in a footnote, is purely conjectural.
This meeting remained conjectural, though plausible, for 47 years, until the summer of 1992, when it was confirmed in a triumphant feat of archival research by Hayford's former student, Herschel Parker, the biographer, who is a character in our book. This morning I see that in the summer of 1987, he was in the Boston Public Library searching microfilm of Massachusetts newspapers for reviews of Moby Dick, when he came across an article in the Lowell Weekly Journal and Courier, published December 19, 1851, and reprinted from a longer version in the Windsor Journal. The article, a dispatch written by an anonymous special correspondent from the Vermont newspaper, describes the Lenox cottage of the famous literary recluse Nathaniel Hawthorne. Determined to see the original version, as well as any other dispatches from this special correspondent, the biographer typed a note into his large computer file on the year 1851.
Must find Windsor, Vermont Journal.
He enlisted the help of a Portsmouth historian who 5 years later found the journal and sent the biographer a packet containing photocopies of articles written by the special correspondent.
At 2 p.m. mail, and all hell broke loose, the biographer noted in his diary.
Contained in the packet was a second dispatch from the correspondent, documenting a meeting between Melville and Hawthorne at a Lenox hotel.
Not very long ago, the author of The Scarlet Letter and the author of Typee, having in some unaccountable way gotten a mutual desire to see one another, as if neither had a home to which he could invite the other, made arrangements in a very formal manner to dine together at a hotel in this village. What a solemn time they must have had, the correspondent wrote, those mighty conjurers in the domain of the imagination, all alone in the dining room of a hotel.
The biographer read the photocopied article with shaking hands. Here was the meeting that Hayford had imagined almost 50 years ago.
Jesus, he wrote in his diary, my mind is wild.
He sat at his computer and deleted his old note to himself.
Must find Windsor, Vermont Journal.
Next, he shared the news with Jay Lyda, whose The Melville log he had for years been updating and augmenting. Lyda, who had been dead 4.5 years, was, according to the biographer,
the only dead scholar I talked to.
Wanted a drink, he wrote in his diary, although he had forsworn alcohol 6 years earlier so that he could remain optimally alert as he attempted to finish his Melville biography. In lieu of a celebratory drink, he called Hayford, then Maurice Sendak, and then
went back to work.
Eventually, the biographer realized that his biography would have to be divided into 2 volumes, each one longer than the proposed whole, and he faced the question of where to split the life.
You don't have any choice, a fellow Melvillian told him. You have to end it in the hotel.
The final chapter of the first volume, Melville in Triumph, indeed concludes with Melville's meeting with Hawthorne at the Lenox Hotel on perhaps November 14, a Friday, the official publication date of Moby Dick. It was, according to the biographer,
a sacred occasion in American literary life. At some well-chosen moment, he wrote, Melville took out the book whose publication they had both been awaiting and handed his friend an inscribed copy. Hawthorne, he wrote, was profoundly moved by Melville's gift. Enveloped in tobacco smoke, the 2 men lingered long after the dining room had emptied, each reverential toward the other's genius, each aware that when they met again in West Newton, in Boston, or wherever their fates might bring them together, they would not fall at once into these present terms of intimacy. Take it all in all, Volume 1 concludes, this was the happiest day of Melville's life.
The claim seemed dubious, but last night I couldn't figure out if the problem lies in the selection of this particular day out of all of Melville's many days, or if it lies in the presumption to assess the happiest day in the life of someone else, particularly someone so mysterious and dead, or if it lies in the potential confusion of happiest with other superlatives, such as most content, or most consequential, or most memorable, or if it lies in the belief in the very concept of a happiest day of a life. I lay awake thinking of some of the happy days of my life, but the thought that any one of them might be the happiest day of my life I found unhappy. Of course, I didn't like the idea that on the happiest day of Melville's life, his wife was at home nursing their newborn son, despite suffering from a breast infection so painful the walls in her room had been draped with sheets because the pattern of the wallpaper made her dizzy. Some of my happy days were nights in our nursery, reading Howard's End.
You don't have any choice. You have to end it in the nursery.
That small room had a Dutch door, I remember. From its window, I could see, when the leaves were down, the northeast corner of the hayfield, its birds dropping and lifting like thoughts. If my husband had been with me last night, we didn't say that he's quarantined in the basement in this part of the book, sorry.
Not the whole book,
But just this, yeah.
just a little bit.
Yeah. Although he could have been somewhere else, but anyway. If my husband had been with me last night, I might have woken him with a hand on his back and told him that awful story about Lizzie Melville in the wallpaper, or, because I knew he would like it, a scholar's sweet memory of Harrison Hayford calling the Chicago White Sox the Great White Sox, or the biographer's extraordinary claim about Melville's happiest day, or John Updike's allegation somewhere that Hawthorne was at his happiest in the Berkshires, though he didn't know it, or my suspicion that I must not understand anything at all about happiness, or my eager anticipation of the forthcoming first biography of Elizabeth Hardwick, or Maurice Sendak's refusal to find out the age of his German shepherd Herman because he didn't want to know and in fact wished he didn't know his own age, or my heretical paraphrase of Mary Ruefle's poem My Happiness, in which the speaker's happiness follows a porcupine into a culvert. If my husband had been there, I might not have lain in the dark attempting to calculate the number of days Herman Melville lived, but then again I might have. The number I derived, inaccurate, but not wildly, it turns out, meant nothing, then anything, then one thing.
I once, like other spoonies, cherished a loose sort of notion that I did not care to live very long, wrote Herman Melville at age 43.
It's easy to find this passage in the letters of Herman Melville because Melville drew a skull and crossbones.
By the way, death in my skull seems to tip a knowing sort of wink out of his left eye. What does that mean, I wonder?
A spoonie, I see, is archaic British slang, meaning a fool or simpleton, derived perhaps from the shallowness of a spoon. And I see it was not Updike but Paul Auster who wrote that summer before Hawthorne moved away from the Berkshires was
the best moment of his life, whether he knew it or not. Looking back on Hawthorne's career now and knowing that he would be dead just 13 years later, a few weeks short of his 60th birthday, that season in Lenox stands out as one of the happiest periods of his life, a moment of sublime equipoise and fulfillment.
The Hawthornes left Lenox in a snowstorm on November 21, 1 week after Melville and Hawthorne dined at the hotel. Melville's publication party, the biographer calls it, to which he invited a solitary guest. Hawthorne appears to have read Moby Dick in 2 days, sitting in his study while his wife packed the house and took care of their 3 young children, nursing the infant Rose.
What a book Melville has written, he wrote to a mutual friend weeks later.
The letter he wrote to Melville about the book, likely destroyed by Melville, is the unlocated item most desired by Melvillians.
Imagine the auction value, the biographer wrote, especially if Melville made on it any notes for his reply.
Melville's reply the next day was, according to a Hawthorne biographer, one of the most extraordinarily intimate letters one author ever sent another.
Why don't you read it to me?
My husband said last night on the phone. I don't know, I said. It's kind of intense, I said. I told him it was easy to find it online.
Just read it to me.
It was late. It felt too late for Melville's precipice, but my husband doesn't ask for much. He requires a lot, but he doesn't ask for much.
So then she reads in the letter on the phone in their own house, but that's the next chapter. So this is the prologue. So we're going to read from our next book, our next potential book.
Hopefully.
It won't be too long because this is every single word of it so far, but it's 8.5 minutes of a book or something. And again, this is the husband, and it's post quarantine and pandemic coming out of it, and we're shooting for like a Mr. and Mrs. Bridge type situation here, but. And then life resumed as an unsettling facsimile of life. Gradually, we crept out into it to see if it would support our weight. The place that serves you food, the place that sends packages to other places, the place that cleans clothes without even getting them wet. We're like whalers returning to Nantucket, I told my wife. She conceded my point, but added that in many respects, we were not like whalers. One afternoon, we attended an outdoor gathering in our colleague's backyard. A party, it would have once been called. We hadn't wanted to go, we didn't want to gather, but we had RSVP'd with excessive zeal. While I drove us there beneath the speed limit, we attempted to conjure the names of our colleagues' partners and even a few of our colleagues. We disagreed about the ages of their children. My wife contended that the department head's twins, whom we had last seen eating sand from a sandbox, would now be older. While I was of the opinion that other people's children were not subject to the laws of time. It had made sense for us each to bring a mask, but why would we require so many? It was spring or it was fall, some temperate Saturday, not hot enough to elicit my complaint, not cold enough to elicit my wife's. We would have parked unnecessarily far away. I would have made us wait for the song to finish. My wife would have brought something, though the invitation would have said not to. I remember that we held hands as we approached our colleague's backyard to assuage our anxiety or to convince ourselves that we had made it through, or perhaps because neither of us any longer felt very biologically discreet. Maybe we wanted to demonstrate to the assembled that our marriage, like mildew or crabgrass or the flag at Fort McHenry, was still there. One's motives, my father used to say, are clear only to strangers, though I think I know why he said it. The backyard was full of English professors. As always, the dress code was eclectic, bordering on incoherent. Some addressed for a boating party or a gallery opening, others for yard work or a moderate hike. It's tempting to say it was the pandemic that had rendered us socially awkward, but the truth is that we had always been that way. Some of us had never learned how close to stand to another person or how loudly to speak. Some of our laughter was incorrect in pitch or duration. Our wine sloshed, grapes rolled off our plates. We disclosed too little or far, far too much. This is a perfect audience for this, right? Never get better. Never. Small talk had never been our forte, but it had now become perilous, given the chasm of time since we'd last interacted in 3 dimensions. As if to illustrate the risk, one of our colleagues, bending to scratch the ears of an Australian shepherd, asked our host,
Where's your other dog?
We drank. All talk channeled to tales of homesteading and survival. Someone's children had returned to live with them, as had someone's parents. Someone had painted every wall of their house. People had become knitters, bakers, birders, canners. Someone now had rabbits in a rabbit hutch. I disclosed that my wife had spent the pandemic reading biographies of Herman Melville. Like all of them, I said. I was operating, no doubt, under a potent cocktail of influences, including a potent cocktail, a generous desire to summon my wife from shadow, a reflexive desire to remain in shadow myself, and or some ancient wound or marital grievance far beyond my ken. At times, it is surprisingly difficult to know whether one is honoring or flouting one's marital vows. Why Melville? Someone asked my wife. She stared down at her crudité. She said,
Well, he had an interesting life.
This was not, as the group soon learned, an introductory remark. Smoke billowed from a smokeless fire pit. A shift in the wind forced our group to disband. My wife and I joined a new one over by the DIY compost bin, from which the extant dog was tugging melon rinds. The topic here was domestic quarantine protocols. I was not, I learned, the only husband who had self-isolated in a basement. "Here's a tale," said our Shakespearean, depositing his plate into the compost. "Our neighbor,"
Former neighbor.
this was his partner, our romanticist. "Yes, he's since departed," our Shakespearean said. "Not to the grave, but to Bloomington, I believe." His partner nodded. "He lived for many years on our street a few doors down. We didn't know him well, but he seemed nice enough. He seemed conventional. He observed normal business hours. He trimmed his hedges. He wasn't garrulous. He wouldn't cross the street to talk about the weather. I wouldn't say he was unfriendly. He was just not..."
He once told me he grew up on a lake.
"If you saw him out walking his dog, you might wonder about him," said the Shakespearean, "about the complexity of his inner life. But you wouldn't be suspicious. He wouldn't strike you as the likely author of surprise." One day during lockdown, the Shakespearean continued, this man received an automated message notifying him that he'd been exposed to COVID during a recent appointment with his physical therapist. It was decided he would quarantine in the basement while his wife continued to live upstairs.
With their kids.
Right, with their kids. But then, early in his quarantine, his second or perhaps third day, he received another automated message. This one notified him that there had been a mistake and he had not, in fact, been exposed to the virus. Apparently, there had been some sort of contact tracing error. So our neighbor was suddenly free to return to his family. Some good news in a dark time. Our neighbor, though, he did not immediately rejoin his family, the Shakespearean said.
He didn't tell his wife about the message.
No, he didn't. He stayed downstairs and served his entire sentence.
2 full weeks.
Keep in mind, the Shakespearean said, his basement wasn't even a finished basement. It was at this very moment, let's say, that our host summoned us toward his back deck for words of welcome. As a consequence, I did not receive answers to my questions about the case of our Shakespearean's neighbor. How, I wondered, had our Shakespearean's neighbor's wife discovered her husband's deceit? Had he confessed? Or had she somehow caught him out? Did their children know? Had the entire family moved to Bloomington? Or had the wife and children remained in our colleague's neighborhood? And furthermore, how had our colleague acquired this story? Had the incredulous wife unexpectedly shown up at our Shakespearean's door one evening? Had he and the romanticist invited her into their dim parlor, and had she tearfully disclosed the entire matter from their red velvet couch while neglecting her sherry? The only sherry I've had in my life was some years ago at the home of the Shakespearean, served in a glass that he called a schooner, and that he described more than once as wasted. AI. But what if, this was unlikely though possible, the neighbor's wife did not even know what her husband had done? It was disconcerting to consider. "Just so you know," I said to my wife on the way home, "I never got a second call."
What are you talking about?
My physical therapy office, I said, they never called me back to say I hadn't been exposed.
I didn't think they had.
We tried for a time to place the man's deed along a kind of spectrum of treachery. Was it less grave than infidelity? More perfidious than a secret gambling addiction? Clearly, it was a more serious offense than, let's just say, pretending to take the family dog to the final 2 weeks of its 8-week obedience class and taking it instead to the tap room of a local microbrewery. We stopped short of irrevocably bad, but agreed it was fucked up. We were quiet for the rest of the ride home. In the driveway, we unfastened our seatbelts, but neither of us got out. We both stared at our house. My wife asked if I had noticed the raised garden beds in our colleague's backyard. Yes, I said. It was the truth, more or less.
Maybe you could build us some like those.
Sure, I said, without any of my usual caveats about time, tools, materials, skills, or weather. She put her hand on my knee.
Are you still thinking about that guy?
Who?
The husband, the neighbor.
Oh, you mean the author of Surprise?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I said. A small deceit. A deceit so small it would not, to my mind, even appear on the spectrum we had imagined. And one might say not deceitful at all, because I knew very well she wouldn't believe me. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Please welcome Brittany Allen.
Great. Hi, everybody. I wrote my notes out because I feared rambling on. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, Chris. That was a wonderful piece. I loved it so much. This conference is very special to me. I've had the good fortune to come to this mountain a couple times, and I always leave very altered and very invigorated. I love everyone here so much. This place has given me some of my favorite writers and people in the world, including, I wrote that down, the only 10 I see. And I'm just very grateful to Leah and Adam and Gwen, the formidable staff, the faculty, my co-workshop leader, Dan O'Brien, the actors, I mean, everyone who makes this possible. Truly, we can't say it enough. Okay, a little intro. I'm going to read from a play of mine called Redwood, with these two here. It is not new work by the strictest definition. I started sharing pages and scenes from this play in 2015. But we're time traveling tonight because this play's headed into a production this fall in New York, off-Broadway, at Ensemble Studio Theater. And though it's had a couple of productions already, I'm kind of afraid of this one. Its life so far has been pre-pandemic, as goes without comment. And maybe those of you who work on projects for long periods of time can relate to this feeling or fear a bit that the person who first conjured a world is kind of like an alien to you after lots of time goes by, and you love her and you defend her, but I'm finding myself having to redefine speaking terms with a prior self a bit with this piece. So thank you very much for being part of what is partially me sounding out a previous self and tapping on the walls of a structure to see how it sounds today. Okay, a little more framing, and then we'll get to it. In this play, we are in Baltimore, end of the Obama years. Redwood is about an interracial couple in their 20s. Meg is black, Drew is white. They learn that they share an undesirable ancestral connection. They learn of this connection when Meg's uncle, somewhat of a chaos agent named Steve, falls down the rabbit hole of charting the family's genealogy via Ancestry.com. I really appreciated the invitations in both Maurice and Talene's craft talks earlier this week to think about how we loot the archive and our personal genealogies for stories. I've done a bit of that in this jaunt. And this play, I'll say, just comes from curiosity around the question, what do we do with our violent history? How do we carry it interpersonally? Today, oh, there's one more paragraph, I'm sorry. And to frame things a bit tonally, excuse me while I invoke another colleague, Nate Marshall's theory in his lecture that the release of laughter is intrinsic to our elegies has really been sticking to my skin, and I think I'm very interested in the inverse of that. With this piece and in general in my work, what is the elegy inside of our laughter rituals? What is laughter, when does laughter need release, and what does that look like? So, the opening bit of this intro for these specific scenes. I'm reading Meg, Sean is reading Drew, Phil is reading Stevie. I'm sorry I gave you a nickname just now, Philip. You're not a Phil, oh my God. Prior to this scene, Meg and Drew have just moved in together. Steve reached out to Drew online without knowing that these two were dating. Off stage somewhere, we have Meg's mom, who's very religious. That's just glancingly mentioned. She's a very devout Christian lady. The scenes are in sequence, we'll roll through, and the only other thing you need to know is that this play does contain some magical elements. There's a chorus of dancers who kind of abet the action. There's a physical language of this play when it is propped up with people. And they sort of haunt Steve in particular. They appear in these pages to break the world in sort of a goofy flashback sequence that I hope you will follow in the middle. You'll see. Okay, let's go. All right. Okay. Scene 4. All three spaces, the dance studio, mom's kitchen, and the apartment, disappear. We're in a bland but hip coffee shop. Steve enters, secures a table. After a beat, Drew.
Andrew?
Steve.
Yes. Please, sit. Thank you for meeting me.
I don't usually get that many calls in a day. I mean, it's very nice to meet you.
So, I don't want to waste any of your time. You said you're a scientist.
Oh, I'm a PhD candidate, physics.
Physics, huh? Like dropping apple on Galileo shit?
More like a quantum electrodynamics and plasma physics, mostly theoretical so far, kind of hippy-dippy stuff.
Nuh-uh, brother. Don't discount your work like that. Say it loud, say it proud.
And what is it that you do?
Oh, I'm fun employed.
Oh, dear.
Well, I'm gonna be straight with you, because you're kind of sort of family, like,
What?
you know, the dot-com bubble?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, you old like me. Well, before that bubble up and popped, I managed to make out like a bandit. Microsoft offered me stock options and my contract, and before that shit went down, I cashed out. Lord, what fools these mortals be. 2002 me all like, I'm rich, biatch!
That's great for you.
But money is one thing, you know, but it's just one thing. So yeah, I moved back east a little while ago. Minor domestic collapse, I guess. Yikes. And I've been doing a lot of work on me since then. A lot of traveling, trying to get back in shape, trying to reconnect with some old friends and family, and then this little project.
He slaps a heavy folder down on the table. They both stare at it.
I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
Well.
This is a significant exercise for black folks. It's just so important to have your history.
Oh, no, sure, I get it.
And I don't want money. This isn't the case for reparations. I'm simply sharing information that I thought you'd be interested in, information I thought you might be able to shed some light on. I'm making my tree, okay? So 405 generations ago.
I don't mean to, but how did you find my number again?
Andrew.
What?
It's pretty amazing that we find ourselves in the same city, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
I came here today, and you did, and that means something. If I believed in God, man, I'd be like, yes! I'm gonna show you this. We'll go slow.
Steve opens the folder, puts on reading glasses with a flourish.
So, my people, my mama's people, they come from Louisiana and Kentucky mostly, and I found this friggin' daguerreotype from like 1831. See that?
Oh, yeah.
You believe that? Amazing, right? Old stone-faced. Thank you for the cheekbones, Grampy. Huh. Anyway, so that's my great-great-great-papa Micajah, the rare recipient of his 40 acres. Now, he's a sharecropper working outside Farmington Plantation. Hemp and potatoes mostly. This was post-war. And then we know the trail from there. His sons go into business, some of them migrate north, some of them make the first blank in their respective industries, some of them get lighter and lighter and lighter until they fall out of the Bible completely.
Oh, sure. Oh,
But the mystery, the thing at the center of everyone is this man, Micajah, whose parentage was a total mystery to me until this week. Dun dun dun! Now, here's this man, a new man. You recognize him? Here is a Clark Tatum.
Well, yes, Clark is a family name. My dad's Henry Clark Tatum.
Now, see, I just learned that Micajah's mother and my great-great-great-great-great-grandma, Grandma Alameda, was registered as the property of the Tatums in 1841. He enslaved her, her husband Felix, and these two sons, Micajah and Napoleon. Napoleon. Can you believe that? They named a motherfucker Napoleon. See here. Says, property of a Mr. Clark Tatum. This is human inventory. Not too far from Louisville, it was.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, my dad never told me.
Maybe you didn't know.
Maybe. My grandparents, they died at sea, actually, so I never really knew them.
Wait, like,
Yeah, they were visiting the Philippines in the 70s, aid workers, actually, and their ferry collided with a tanker.
like a shipwreck? Shit.
When my dad was a teenager, and he was taken in by his godparents, Pat and Sella.
Wowie zowie. So, you don't know any Tatums then?
Not really, not well. I have some very early memories of my father's childhood house in Fort Lauderdale. They kept it like a shrine to my parents for a long, long time. I remember there were these paneled walls, and the rooms were very dark, and it always smelled like cigarettes, even though Pat and Sella didn't smoke. Somebody kept birds in cages, obviously, and I used to think about how the birds would get cancer, lung cancer, though I don't think it actually works that way.
Perished on the high sea. Fuck. I tell you, brother, families are fascinating. You can never predict. Yeah. So, if you wanted to make, like, an account.
Maybe. I'm sorry, I'm sorry that I don't have any more information immediately about the Tatums.
I bet you wish you could have known them too.
Do you?
Are you?
Please, go ahead.
Because, well, I really asked you here because of the blood connection, right? Because you see here, we have some of Tatum's sons and daughters that went down and made your branch. You see that? But Micajah and Napoleon, Micajah specifically, he went off over here and made mine. Because Micajah and Napoleon were Alameda and Clark Tatum's children.
Oh, God.
Well, what did you think?
No.
No? What do you mean, no?
I'm sorry. This is a bit overwhelming. Hey, did you think about DNA?
This site is really accurate.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry. It's just, God, I'm not naive. I know about American history. I don't know what I can give you, except my sincerest. I'm so sorry. Well, please don't say like that. You did contact me. I want to know how best for you I can proceed.
I said I didn't want your money, man. I'm making my tree, just reaching out to all the leaves on the tree so I can make some shade, some shelter. Understand?
Hey, I support you. But can you... I don't know if I want to know anymore about these Tatums. Maybe, shouldn't I...
What?
I don't know, it's just so terrible. I want to not give them any more of my time, maybe, or our time.
Steve shuts his folder.
I don't mean to upset you. Hey, I didn't... what can I say? What do you want me to say?
Oh, not a thing, cuz. I respect your healthy boundary setting. Please, take a cookie on your way back to Ignitville.
Okay, man, come on.
No, Andrew, it was really nice to meet you. You don't want this heat, that's whatever. It's just very nice and convenient that you get to look away.
But it's not that hey, wait. It's not that I don't want to, that I don't know about looking at heat. The woman I love is black. Oh, God, I swore I'd never say that to prove a point.
Steve gathers his paper slowly. Drew's phone rings. Ringtone is probably like Beach House?
I'm sorry.
No need. No, this would be the black woman you love.
She told me not to come today. People get murdered, she said. Remember the wire?
Take it. I should be
Anyone
going
in Charles
anyways.
Village needs to be reminded of the wire. No, I don't have to leave. Will you just 1 second, okay, please?
Picking up his phone.
Hey, Meg, I'm safe, but I really can't talk right now.
Meg?
Meg appears in her space. Yay, wait, tell me, is he weird?
I can't really...
Oh my God, he's standing right there, huh? Oh man, I bet he's weird.
Yo, what was her last name?
Say no more, I'll leave you to it. But yo, I'm over here trying to declutter the Love Shack working title. Think you could pick up some twine on your way home?
Yes.
Great, cool, see you at home, bye. Meg hangs up.
No way that's short for Marguerite Wilson, right? What's she about, 5'9"? Teacher? Born and raised here?
Why would you? No.
Delivered by C-section? John Hopkins, May of 1993? Was I in the room holding her mother Beverly's hand because of her podunk Papa Arnold fainted after the first big contraction?
No.
Yes.
Oh, fuck me.
Light shift.
Scene 5. A few days later, Meg and Drew enter. Drew with Chinese food. He prepares the space for dinner, chopsticks, plates. It's all a little quiet, a little too polite. We hear Mom's voice in voiceover. It didn't matter if my parents liked him because I liked him just fine.
Did you say something?
Instructor enters. Okay, group, look alive. We're doing How They Got Together from the top. And 5, 6, 7, 8. Joyful pop music. Dancers run on stage and arrange Meg and Drew like puppets. Space and time shift. We're now at an outdoor cafe near the waterfront, 2014 abouts. Drew is reading a fat textbook and highlighting things. Meg is reading Freedom by Jonathan Franzen and rolling her eyes in circles and circles. The two notice each other.
Hi, I'm Andrew.
Hi, I'm Marguerite, but everyone calls me
Drew.
Meg.
And first date, dinner and a movie, go! The dancers jerk Meg and Drew's tables together so they're sitting side by side. They go through the motions of an incredibly good first date. They laugh at one another's jokes. They touch one another's arms. The dancers play waiters. But instead of delivering food, they deliver rose petals to the table on dishes.
Do you want to skip the movie and come back to my place?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Meg and Drew do an interpretive, we're having sex dance. Cue best friends! Best friends, sidle up.
It's weird. I like him because he's one of these people who gets passionately swept up talking about his own thing, but will also be like, wait, please genuinely stop me if I'm boring you. I love to watch him work. This little face he makes.
I don't know, man. She's warm and she's kind. She reads fiction. I've never met anyone quite like her. And not to be a creep, but her body is...
Mouth. There's an excellent mouth situation.
She's got this great smile.
He makes me stupid giddy.
And
I know I'm rapidly turning into the disgusting, terrible friend who stops answering phone calls in a timely manner and is generally insufferable company, all someday you'll know what this feels like, as if there's anything wrong with being single.
Girl, thanks so much for saying that. It's actually been a rough few weeks since the accident. My man, you do you. Luckily, the fire didn't destroy my spirit, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I'm distracted because this is
Real and bona fide.
real and bona fide LOVE love.
The dancers, Meg and Drew, move into a big, goofy, synchronized love dance. The music is ideally some mashup running the gamut from Sinatra's It Had to Be You to Kia's My Neck, My Back. Stevie dances on stage somewhere during this medley and whispers something in Meg's ear. Sound of a record scratch.
What? I didn't catch that.
Inaudible whisper again. Meg stares at Drew. Drew stares at Meg. Steve tiptoes out like he's just dropped a smoke bomb.
Oh. Wow, what are the odds of that?
I mean, this specific situation? Yeah, I guess slim?
Right.
Come on, squad, read the room. The dancers creep away. Joy leaves the space. Meg and Drew move to polar ends of the stage and pull up chairs, begin to eat Chinese food. Quiet, interminable, while...
Pass the soy sauce? Hey, could you pass the soy sauce? Hey!
Huh? Sorry, here. What's so funny?
Oh, nothing.
No, what?
Well, I'm just thinking, this is so stupid. You know that very dumb joke that all black people are related?
Yes.
Well, in your experience, they kind of are. all related because, don't worry.
Chewing.
Like I said, I
actually
didn't
think it's
know.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't realize because I haven't gotten around to his emails, and I'm sorry I hadn't, introduced you to my uncle yet.
Right.
Obviously, if I had realized you were meeting today, I would have...
What?
Well, I would have suggested that you get scones to go with your espressos. Sorry, stupid joke. Stupid, not quite a joke. Blah. Let's start again. Will you pass the soy sauce? Thanks, Bae. I love your shirt today. Very science. Hey, Drew, where does a mansplainer get his water from?
Huh? From a well, actually. Get it?
I get it.
You're not eating your dumplings.
I am. I'm just chewing slowly.
Would you like the soy sauce back?
Are you done with it?
Yes, that's why I offered it to you. Stop it.
What? I didn't...
I said I wish you would stop it.
Stop what?
Being weird. Just talk to me like a person and stop being weird.
I don't really know how else to be, though. This is empirically weird. Sorry. What are you thinking about?
I was thinking, should I time my presentation, or is it going to be one of those things where they say you have 3 minutes, but really you have unlimited time? And I'm thinking, it happened a long time ago, right? And we're not like cousins, first cousins, anyway, and I'm thinking, boy, I like this fella, but I wish he would stop making that face into his egg drop soup.
Like me? I thought you loved me.
I do love you, come on.
No, I mean, sorry, that was stupid.
How many words did you write today?
Hey, Meg, I actually think you're being weird.
Really? Because I think I'm being exceedingly normal.
Yeah.
Well, what are we supposed to do, baby? Break up? I say, don't hate, miscegenate.
Okay, I don't understand. I don't understand why you're being so flippant about this. I mean, if we were in, couples therapy, this would be the thing we were there to deal with, and it would be a very long session.
Well, you want to go to couples therapy?
No!
Because talk about white people nonsense.
Okay, actually, I think maybe we should go to counseling if it takes a monitor to have a serious conversation with you.
Fuck you! A serious conversation? Do not condescend to me like that. Just do not... Fuck you.
See?
Sorry.
You're mad. I knew it. I wish you would just say it.
I'm not mad, Drew. It wouldn't make logical sense to be mad, and I am a logical person. I mean, I'm not naive. I know about American history. Unlike yourself, I am always in this body, and if my ancestors had met your ancestors in even the loveliest circumstances and say 1862 at the general store in the one free county in Delaware, they still wouldn't have been like friends. Fuck it, 1962.
My family, though, my grandparents were aid workers.
Yes, Drew, you told me that. Peace Corps people with cancerous birds.
And my dad, I can't believe he never told me.
I can.
Come on, Meg, he's not like that. You know he's not.
No one's like that. What's he gonna say? Reading you a bedtime story? Now, son, we used to keep a lot of Negroes tied to the barn, but that was back up in the olden days. Yeehaw, get you a pretty little darky girl.
Jesus!
Jesus, you! This feels like we're missing trains over and over and over again. I'm gonna go to bed.
The thing is, I can't make the same jokes you make, I just can't, and I shouldn't.
Well, that's true. I'm the funny one. All right, okay, I think I see. You want to sit down and rap about the middle passage, right, Bae? Should we hold hands and pray as we summon our mutual ancestors? Or would you rather we just sit on the nice pillows and make meaningful eye contact until we both achieve simultaneous touchless orgasm?
Now you're being cruel.
Well, sucks to your white fragility.
White fragility. Okay, New York Times, well, I'm the only one of us who actually read that book. Oh, wait. Or is she gonna say, fuck you again? Should I apologize or laugh it off? Who's to say? It's the Meg Show!
Okay, so just for my own clarification, you don't actually want to have a real conversation. You just wanted me to rub your belly and say, don't fret about slavery, hot stuff, and then we'd go back to eating chow fun, right?
No!
Meg makes to leave.
Oh, and by the way, I finally told my mom that you moved in. I can't keep important secrets from that woman to save my life. It was getting ridiculous that she didn't know.
What'd she say?
She said Mazel Tov, but young Christian, obviously.
Was this before or after the development?
It was before. It'll be fine. We'll just have to hide the sex dungeon when she tours the house, given its new implications.
I can't do this. Whatever this game, I'm sorry, okay? Just tell me what to say. What is it you want me to say? I can't change the past, Meg.
Obviously, Drew. Obviously not. That is so not the point.
Well, what is the point then?
I don't know! But you looking at me with your sad puppy dog eyes like I personally orchestrated the end of your piece, or I don't know, our whole lives just occurred to you, is not inspiring. And I don't know, maybe I am mad at you. Okay, yeah, and maybe that doesn't make any sense, but sorry, yeah.
Lights.
All right. Evelyn.